33. Being members one of another. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 19 to 25. And if they were all one member, where were the body? But now are they many members, yet but one body. And the eye cannot say unto the hand, I have no need of thee, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Nay, much more those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honourable, upon these we bestow more abundant honour, and our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. For our comely parts have no need, but God hath tempered the body together, having given more abundant honour to that part which lacked, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. Paul continues to discuss the necessity for unity in diversity. Because of modern man's exaggerated sense of individualism, he fails to see how his behaviour is often far from self-determined. In fact, the more individualistic he may try to be, the more likely he is to be, quote, socially conditioned, end quote. Precisely because such a man ignores his creaturely limitations, he becomes more subject to them. Paul asks in verse 19, how can there be a body if all the members are identical? The word body implies and requires a unity which presupposes a diversity. It is an aspect of man's sin that he seeks to isolate himself from human diversities. In so doing, he beggars himself and becomes more and more narrow in his perspective. This will to isolation can mark peoples in high and low places, and it leads to social hostilities and conflicts. The simple fact is, Paul says in verse 20, precisely because there are many members, there is one body. Each requires the other. Both the one body and the many members are not meaningful without the other. It is ridiculous for the eye to say to the hand, I have no need of thee, or for the head to say the same to the feet. Verse 21. The very idea is an absurdity, and Paul uses this absurdity to drive home his point. We dare not allow either the important nor the seemingly unimportant church members to regard one another as unnecessary. We cover many body parts while happily exposing others. We find some aspects of the body attractive and others less so. This does not mean that the covered parts are any the less necessary for our existence. Verse 22. Some parts are, quote, feebler, end quote, than others, and yet equally essential. Some parts of our body we regard as less honourable in Paul's terms, but they are no less important for life. Some aspects of our body which we do not flaunt, we still treat very well, giving them more abundant honour, and so on. We cannot very well dispense with these various organs without either death or serious crippling. God has so ordained the body that we quickly learn the interdependence and necessary place of all aspects of our being. Verse 24. God has so created us that we have no schism or dissension in our physical body. The whole body functions readily and naturally as a unit. We readily give care and respect to all our body. God's purpose in this is that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. Verse 25. This is a remarkable and very important statement. We are told that those in the church whose leadership makes them appear to be more, quote, honourable, end quote, should so regard for those of the church body, which seem to be more feeble, because they too, quote, are necessary, end quote, to its strength and proper functioning. This is a perspective on the church lacking in many, many circles. It has at times been in evidence in the church, as with John Calvin in Geneva and with St. Charles Borromeo in Milan. The word schism in verse 25 is not to be read in terms of modern usage, that is, church splits, but in its Greek meaning as division. The church is divided if members isolate themselves from others because of their needs, or from those in authority because of their authority. In either case, it is a division whenever it is done without biblical warrant. In reading Paul's letter to the Corinthians, it becomes clear that the Corinthians had seriously misconstrued the meaning of the gospel. They had seen it as freedom, but to them, it was not so much freedom from sin and death as freedom from responsibility. Paul's letters are written to correct this antinomian fallacy. To read the meaning of the gospel individualistically means to see its content as man-centered and as simply personal, whereas it is kingdom-centered, justice-centered, mercy-centered, and more. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. We are enlisted, then, in the causes of Christ to serve him and his people, and to abandon our self-will for God's law-word. Man's original sin is to be his own God, his own source of law and morality. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. Whereas to be redeemed means that God is for us, God the Lord, our total source of law and morality, our Saviour and our King. Man's idea of cheap salvation is to be saved from hell, to go his own way with an occasional minimal nod to God and to Christ. Despite the waywardness of the Corinthians, Paul is very hopeful. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 2 and 3, he actually says, "Ye are our epistle, written in our hearts, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God." Paul's patience had led to a change in the church so that the members had become, however still frail in the faith, mindful of much that Paul had taught them. They must now learn humility in faith,